Hello and welcome to this Q&A show on career fulfillment and job search success. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, founder of MyMarkability and the creator of the Get Hired training program. I am so delighted that you are here today. Thank you for being here. My intention is to be of service to you. After taking a year off from my pregnancy and 4 months of my maternity leave, I'm finally back online. So you're going to be seeing more of me this year, hosting more Q&A webinars. So here's how it's going to work today in terms of our agenda. So I know a lot of you submitted questions. I have about 50 questions that were submitted. What I'm going to do to be super effective and efficient is I'm going to answer the questions by categories. So I recommend that you submit questions as we go along based on our topics. I'm going to start off with the big picture of the career direction, self-discovery. Then we'll move into job search, where we had a lot of questions about how to conduct a great job search. And then from there, I'll talk about personal branding, networking, LinkedIn, resume, and interviews. So we'll spend about 60 to 70 minutes on that. And then towards the end of the last 20 minutes, I will also share with you about how you can work with me if you're interested in some interesting bonuses that I'm going to have because I'm celebrating MyMarkability's 5-year anniversary this month here. Okay, so I am curious because this is live. I'm really curious to see where people are coming. If you are in the chat room, please do type in the group chat to let me know that where you're from. Can you all hear me live? Type yes. Okay, and then there's also the Q&A chat box that you can also submit your questions as we go along. So before I start into questions, I do want to give a brief introduction about myself. So I'm a career coach, speaker, trainer, and recruiter. The last 6-7 years, I've been working extensively as a recruiter, recruiting for Google Canada, and I used to be a former manager for the Ivey Business School, recruiting for MBA, executive MBA admissions. And then I also work as a recruiter for an agency at Fish Recruit, where I've recruited for various roles, specifically more in the sales, training, marketing, analytics, technology space. So I have a really good perspective of what employers are looking for. And as a coach in my own business, in MyMarkability, I have worked with over 500 people in over 20 industries in Canada, US, Europe, working people from all levels, from entry level to mid-level to all the way to the senior C-level executives as well. Typically, people come to me for a few things. Number one is they want to figure out the career direction of what they want, or they need help with their closing an interview, of how to ace that interview. They may be getting interviews already, but not closing. Or those who may have been, unfortunately, been laid off and need help to get back into the job search. So we work on everything from the essentials of your resume, your interviews, and networking, etc. Okay, so enough about me. I do want to have fun with this, so please do submit your questions as we go. And do know I'm here to be of service to you. So what I'll do is I'll start answering questions that people have already submitted to get the conversation going. So the first section that we're going to talk about is career and self-discovery. Okay, so the first question I have here is, how do you define where you want to be in your career? That's a great question. So one of the things that I like to do when I start coaching someone is really start back to getting clear on who you are. In order to help you define where you want to be in your career, some things you want to ask yourself is really asking yourself your strengths, what are you good at, your interest, things that you enjoy talking about, problems you enjoy solving, understanding your values of what's important to you. When you look at understanding your strengths, interests, and values, it will give you a good idea of things that matter to you. So for example, if one of your core values is family, when you're looking for a job, you probably want a job that allows you to give you that work-life balance or the flexibility. The other thing that you want to ask yourself in terms of how to define your career direction, one of the things that I like to ask myself is, what's the impact that you want to make? What do you want to be known for? What type of skills do you enjoy using? Okay. And then the next following question to that is, how does one define their niche? It's a very good question. And I think the way to think about that is to start thinking about what are you known for? What do people typically come to you for in terms of problems that they may have or the help that they may need, to help you define that area of expertise of yours. So for example, in my case, my niche is all about developing people and connecting with people. And over the years, I've always had a passion in helping people transform their lives, helping people to succeed. So oftentimes people come to me for advice on their career direction, getting feedback on their resume or their interview skills. Or they just need some help on, how to open doors for in terms of networking. So ask yourself, like, you can just actually send a survey out to your friends and colleagues and ask them for feedback on what's their impression about you, or how do you add value to their lives or to the organization to help you figure out what the niche is. The next question I have here is, I'm graduating in a few months and need lots of career advice on starting my career. Okay, so this is a great question. It is a broad question, but what I probably suggest is someone who is a new grad looking to start their career, a few things, because typically I think if you're starting your career, you may not have the relevant experience for an employer. So what's more important is really your attitude of how you show up, your enthusiasm, your passion, having that great attitude and showcasing that you're a keener, that you're willing to learn, that you are coachable and trainable. That is key, that you want to give that impression that you are ready to roll up your sleeves and to make a difference. So I think that is really key in terms of working on yourself to show up that, that you are someone with high potential. I'll give you a quick story that relates back to this for a new grad. A couple years ago, I attended a wedding, and the MC was a soon-to-be new grad, and she was super energetic, super happy and positive. She was able to get the room, the crowd excited about the evening, and she made a really great impression on me. And so after leaving the wedding, I was telling my husband, I was like, oh, this person has great potential. I can see her being great at XYZ, or I can see her being great in this organization. And my husband suggested, well, why don't you get her to submit her resume for us to consider? And long story short, at the end, she applied for this job and she got an offer. And this is a new grad who probably had some experience with their summer internships, but it was because her attitude and enthusiasm that really made her stand out and make a lasting impression. Okay, moving on to the next set of questions. Let me see here. For those who are here live, please do feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A chat box here, okay? And feel free just to type and just let me know that you are here. Okay, so we got lots of questions around the job search. One of the core set of questions I got was how to conduct a successful job search, or another one that was asked was, how do I conduct a stealth job search? So a few things. Having worked with hundreds of people, so there are a few what I call the fundamentals to job search success. Number one is really your own mindset and your attitude. So this goes back to whether you believe in yourself, that you have what it takes to be of great value to an employer. This is your mindset. Your mindset impacts the way you show up, the way you communicate. It also impacts your body language as well. So the mindset is key. So what I mean by that, for example, is Using words such as I am great at this versus perhaps I'm great at this, or maybe I'm great at this. That language you use will also have an impact on the impression that you may leave on other people. So the attitude and mindset. Number 2 is really your marketing documents, of having great marketing documents. So messages. What I mean by this is your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, your elevator pitch. You want to make sure all the messages tie together and that they are impactful. Number 3, the key to job search success is networking. You probably have heard this, at least 70% of the jobs are found through networking. That is definitely true. Over all the clients I've worked with, I've only had one person found a job through applying online. Everyone else found a job through networking, referrals, or finding someone on LinkedIn. So it is so key that you are willing to put yourself out there and to talk to people. Because if you don't put yourself out there, people don't know that you're looking for a job, or they don't know that what you want or what you have to offer. The do's and don'ts. So I talked about the do's of successful. The don'ts, what I would say is, from my experience as a recruiter, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. And one of the things that I see people do that I would consider is not a big no-no, but it's something that I don't recommend, is number 1 is either send out a mass email to recruiters and asking for a job or for them to consider you for an opportunity. Number 2, I see a lot is, a message, a quick, just short message that like, Diana, I see you're a recruiter. Do you have a job for me? And you just expect someone will just find a job. And I think what's important is that you're taking the time to nurture those relationships and to showcasing that you've actually done some preparation is key, versus just reaching out and asking for help without any context. What else? The don'ts. I would say that another don't I see, it's pretty common, is that most people tend to apply for jobs online, which is great, but at the same time, is that just using that method of applying online and waiting is not the most effective of getting a call back and getting an interview. What you want to do is using the research of identifying that what jobs are open, and from there, try to find people who work there who can, what I call it, going through the back door, to introduce you to the hiring manager or the recruiter, someone in HR, to help you get an interview. Okay, what's another question related to job search? I see more people are coming in right now, so feel free to ask questions as we move along. Okay, so another question related to job search. So someone asked, why can't I get a job? That's a good question. I don't know if I can answer specifically why you can't get a job, whoever Rehab asked me this question, but I can tell you maybe a few things of why, based on my experience as a recruiter and a coach, what I have seen of why people may not be getting a job. I think number 1 is in terms of the way someone's marketing themselves is not maybe effective. Or the other thing is, I think we talked about earlier, is that just relying on applying online is not effective at all. Like the chance of getting a call is like less than 10%. And just my experience as a recruiter, oftentimes we get lots and lots of resumes. The resumes all pretty much sometimes look the same if you're applying for similar jobs. Most of the time I see in resumes, they're lacking what I call the impressive accomplishments or results that make one truly stand out as a candidate. And it could also be like not getting a job because you're just not putting yourself out there enough in terms of really networking, that more people get to know what is it that you truly have to offer. Okay, so another question that I have here is how to transfer internally. That's a great question. So it's similar to job search, but you want to transfer internally. So I think this depends on whether you're looking to transfer internally within the same department or another department. What I would probably suggest to do is to first have a chat with your manager. where you share about your career aspirations, your goals, the skills you want to develop, the area that you want to learn more about, and ask for advice on who are some people that you can possibly talk to. Because especially internally, you want to make sure that the hiring manager is supportive of you making that move. And from there, potentially, if you have an HR contact, to talk to them to identify what are some potential opportunities that you can talk to them about. What I have found for most people that I hear for finding jobs internally, typically you probably have built a reputation that you're known for something, and someone that you worked with may have moved to another department that they are interested in, recruiting you over. So what you can also ask is like, who are some people that you know that you admire and respect have made a successful transition internally, and ask for their advice and see if if there are any openings in that area that you may be interested in. Okay, so next question here on job search. When job searching, any tips to help identify whether a job is still worth applying, even if you don't meet all qualifications? That's a good question. So basically, should I apply for a job if I'm not fully qualified for? So it really depends. I think one of the things you want to do, what I like to say is you want to understand what are the minimum qualifications and what are the preferred qualifications. So if you have the minimum qualifications and the preferred ones that you're missing a few, you probably want to consider applying for that job. I know from my experience as a recruiter, it is really difficult to find someone who meet all the hiring qualifications. Sometimes the hiring manager may need to compromise that they may have the relevant skill set, but maybe missing some knowledge in a certain area, or they may be missing experience in this industry. So it really, really depends. And we have to go back to looking at the job itself. I would say, here's a rule of thumb. I would say that if, let's say you're a new grad and they're looking for someone with 1 or 2 years experience, I would say go for it. But if you're a new grad and you're applying for a job that requires minimum 5 years experience and you don't have any, then you probably don't want to go for it. So you really want to look at where you are at in your career and how big of that gap it is. Obviously, the bigger the gap, the harder it is. I know when I recruit as a recruiter, typically the minimum is they want to see that you have the experience piece, whether it's that you have experience in that functional area, so meaning, for example, like a marketing experience, or maybe if you have at least the industry experience with transferable skills. Okay, so I have a question here. Looking for your perspective on whether one should take up an MBA or stick on the learning within the industry. Good question. So I did my MBA, and I used to recruit for MBA and executive MBA programs. I think it really depends on where you are in your career and your background. So I'm curious to know about that. And one thing is that investing in MBA is a huge investment. So what you really want to get clear on, first of all, is why? Why is it that you want to do an MBA? Is it because you don't have, say, a degree and the jobs you're applying for requires a degree, then getting an MBA would help you qualify for those jobs? Or is it the fact that the jobs you're looking to apply to, so it's a must that they need to have that MBA? Or if you're looking for, let's say, management positions that require an MBA that's beneficial, you may want to consider that. But I think what's really important, this is my perspective, is when you invest in an MBA is you really want to ask yourself what you want to get out of it. So for example, like in my case, when I decided to do an MBA, this was like 8 years ago. One of the reasons I decided to do it's because I had aspirations of moving back to China. And I know that over there, they really value people with having an MBA. The other thing is, depending on the school, an MBA is also great for developing a strong network. Some of my closest friends or contacts that I have were developed through an MBA school. Now, if you're not sure what you want to do with your career, I don't recommend going for an MBA to figure that out. What I recommend instead is to get coaching, get career coaching to help you get clear on what is it that you want versus going back for MBA school. There's so many things you can talk about, I think, for MBA, whether you do it part-time or full-time. I think it all depends on your own situation. But in general, I would say from education, like in terms of continuous learning, I think it's great to always invest in continuous learning, whether it's an MBA or certificate. What I would probably suggest is that if you are in a particular field that is changing all the time and require upgrade in your skills, definitely want to invest in some sort of learning. So for example, let's use the industry in like the digital online space. Things are always changing. I think it's worthwhile investing in getting like a digital marketing certificate, learning about search engine optimization, analytics, anything that's relevant to your field that will help you become more marketable is worthwhile. So I hope that answers your question, Van. The next question here is, what are some of the key things to remember of for business analyst job search? So this is quite specific, but I would say that first of all, when I think of a business analyst job, it is a more analytical type of job. So one of the things, as an employer, what they would look for in a BA is someone who is analytical, logical, structured, possibly detail-oriented, depending on the type of role, if you're doing like reporting. So when you think about that, the way you handle your communications and your resume, you want to be able to showcase that you are analytical and that you have structure, methodology of how you go about problem solving. I think that's probably another key where you want to highlight is that you're a problem solver, that you're able to attention to detail, and you're able to solve problems logically, analytically. Okay, another question I have here is, how do I connect with good headhunters or recruiters that get results? That's a very good question. So how do I connect and get results? So first of all, because I work as a recruiter on the agency side, I often get job seekers contacting me as well. One thing I want to set the stage to keep in mind is that recruiters work for the employers. So their job is to find the best talent, best candidate for the employer. Their job is not to help you as a job seeker to find a job. Okay. So when you think about that, what's important is that you want to make sure that you connect with recruiters and headhunters who specialize in the area that you are in. So for example, like I specialize in recruiting for sales and marketing. If I have people coming from, let's say, an engineering background coming to me, it's really hard for me to help them because I don't recruit in that space at all. So that's the number one rule, is you want to connect with recruiters who recruit in your space. Number two, there's a difference between talking to recruiters at an agency versus a corporation. If you're reaching out to an agency, typically they'll have an opportunity for you to submit your resume. I would follow up to see if you can get like a quick coffee chat or a quick call to learn more about the roles that they have open and share about your experience. If they recruit in your space, typically recruiters will be responsive in having a chat with you. I think what's really important is that you want to have what I call like your top 3 unique selling points, right? What is it that you have to offer? So instead of going from the perspective of, I'm looking for a job, do you have something for me? You want to go to the perspective is that I'm looking to add value to an organization where I can leverage my XYZ skills and the experience I have in XYZ. That is more effective because it showcases that you understand your value proposition of what you have to offer versus coming in a more like a desperate mode that you are looking for a job. Okay, so let's see what other questions that we have here. Next question is on what is the role of bilingualism in today's Toronto job market? That's interesting. I would say I've only recruited for a few bilingual roles. I don't recruit a lot of those. What I do know is that when there is that kind of opening, it's really hard to find really good bilingual people. So what I would say, although there may not be a lot of roles, but when the role opens, it's really hard to find those good people. So I think what you want to do for the person who asked this question is that you probably want to identify organizations that have that value that, right? That may have, let's say, an office in Montreal, for example, that they require someone who's bilingual. Next question, how do you kickstart your career or job search when you move to a new city or country? This is a really good question. I know that it can be really difficult when you're new to a country or city because you don't know anyone. So it seems scary to put yourself out there to network. But I think a few things to start. If you're new to a place, I would first identify organizations who specialize in helping people who are new to the country. So for example, like Access Employment, they help experienced professionals who are new to Canada, and they have a few specializations in their field, let's say financial services and technology, that they'll help you connect you to employers. So I think that's one, is to connect to these kind of organizations. Number two is look into career fairs or job fairs that are happening in your local city. That way, it's a great way to just to get a sense of who the employers are, meet some of the employers, to learn some of the best practices as well. Number three, I would say, is really leverage a tool like LinkedIn to help you do your research. If you have good work experience, you want to build a good LinkedIn profile and to find out like what are some of the things that the experience that people have by conducting some research here. I'll give you an example because I've worked with quite a few people who are new to Canada. I once had someone who was a CFO level from Spain, new to Canada. She was looking for a job for about a year and wasn't getting results. And so she hired me to help her with her job search. And one of the things that, because she was pretty experienced and pretty at the senior level already, one thing I identified was that she was not talking to the right people. Although she was networking weekly, going out to events and meeting people, she was not talking to the right level of people to get herself an interview. So as soon as I gave her the advice of finding people who were at the director or the CFO level or the director of finance level, she started getting results and get a job right after that. Okay, so making sure that you were talking to the right people is key. The other thing is building those relationships and asking for endorsements. So another great example of another client of mine last year who is in the UK. He was doing job search on his own for quite some time and was not getting results. And one of the challenges that when you are overseas trying to look for a job, and if you have an address that is not local, recruiters will assume that, oh, it's really hard to get an interview, or they prefer to hire local because it's faster. They're not sure whether you may have your work visa yet. There's just many things of what I call hurdles that would lead to a rejection. So this client of mine in UK, he comes from a consulting background. And when we started working together, one of the advice I gave him was to tweak his profile, because knowing that he was going to move here, he got his work visa approved already, is to one, get a Toronto number. Two, on the LinkedIn profile, indicate that they're in Toronto, because when recruiters search, they also search for that. So you want to give them a sense that you are available. And what ended up happening was, because he also had a good experience and we knew that firms he wanted to work in consulting, I ended up referring him to someone in my contact. And instantly, because of my referral and endorsement, he was able to meet with someone at this top consulting firm. And through that informational coffee meeting, it led to a formal interview where this person introduced to the hiring manager who had an opening. And after that, he just went through a series of interviews to get the offer and moved over. Okay, so moving on. The next question is, thinking of moving into a new area. How do I decide if that is the right decision? And how do I ensure successful transition and then success in the new area or field. Okay, this is a big question in terms of making a change. So I guess the first part, how do you decide if it's the right decision? I mean, all goes back to some really deep self-discovery work. So I think we need to go back to really understanding your strengths again, your interest, the values, understanding the goals, like what is it that you want to truly achieve. And I think you got to do some research as well. When you're looking to make an industry change or a profession change, before making that jump, take the time to research, say on LinkedIn, of what does it take to get into that field? And then find people who are already successfully in that kind of role, interview them to see if this is something that you truly like or not. I mean, if you can job shadow them, that's even better. But if you could at least have a conversation and talk to at least 3 to 5 people, that will give you a sense if that's a direction that you want to be in. And the other thing, I think there's quite a lot of deep self-discovery, because I do a lot of this work to helping people decide what's right. It's not something you can just decide right away. You have to really get into even what's your ideal lifestyle, where do you see yourself, what do you want to be known for, going back to even also like the bigger picture of what's important to you. Those are all the things that you need to ask to help you decide whether this is something the right fit. And then the other thing you also need to decide not only is what you want, but do you have some of the transferable skills and experience to make that jump? It is possible. Like I want to say that, for example, like many years ago, I had a client who worked in the government industry as a campaign manager for a politician, and he really wanted to move into technology as a product manager. Very, very different, 2 different types of roles. In order to make that successful transition, number one, he was really clear on his why, like why he wanted what he wanted. And because of that, he had the fire and motivation to make that successful transition. And in order to do that, he did tons of research and preparation of really understanding the industry. He had a list of organizations that he was targeting, did massive research on that. And through that, he talked to tons of people. In order for him, eventually he landed a job at a top telecommunications company. In order to land that job, he had to talk to at least a dozen people at the organization to eventually get an offer. So I think this just goes to show how much work that you need to do to make that successful transition, and to be able to have someone to really endorse you and see the potential in you when you don't necessarily have the industry experience or the functional experience to back yourself up there. And so in this case, I think showcasing that you're a quick learner, that you have a great attitude, that you are coachable and moldable, those are key factors. Okay. So let's move on to, let's see if we have any more job search related questions. So another question is, can you give a few tips on landing a job in the consulting field? Great question here. Consulting, I would say, first of all, it's a very competitive and demanding job. Depending on the types of firms you're targeting, if you're targeting like what I call the top consulting firms, typically they have a set recruiting cycle if they're looking, and they go back to specific schools to recruit. But if they're hiring what I call experienced hires, usually they want you to have a specific niche or specific expertise for them to hire you. In terms of how to go about getting in, I think first of all, you need to really first get clear on why is it that you want consulting, and really understand what the job entails. I find that, you know, when I go back to talk to students at MBA schools or business schools, majority of the time people say they want to go into consulting because it seems like a cool job, but they don't really understand like why or what really consulting really entails. So I think it's really critical to really do that upfront research. And part of it, in order to get in, I would say, is first of all, you need to look at the company itself. What do they specialize in terms of the type of cases they work on, the industries they focus on, who are like their clients that they work with, because that will help you determine for the employer the type of talent that they need. So for example, if a consulting firm specializes in the financial services industry, they may be looking for people who have a keen interest in the financial services space. Or if they specialize in a strategy practice, they're looking for people who have done work related to strategy. So you want to be able to showcase that you have that relevant expertise. I would say, I mean, the key with also consulting is that you have to really do your research, and if they do case interviews, you need to make sure that you actually practice those case study interviews, because it's really different from a typical behavioral style interview. Okay, so moving on. I hope this is helpful. Okay, so now we're finished some of the questions around job search. I'm going to move into questions around personal branding. Okay, so personal branding, one of my favorite topics to talk about. And one question is how important it is to brand yourself. Well, it is absolutely important to brand yourself, because if you don't brand yourself, someone else is going to brand you. You see, your personal brand is what you stand for, who you are, and what you're known for. So if you don't take time to brand yourself in this competitive job market, it's really hard to stand out. And one of the things I always talk about is that the greater your brand, the greater your market value. See, your brand is not only just who you are, what you offer, but it's also how do you package yourself in a way that leaves a memorable impression. So this goes on to even include how you dress, how you talk, how you show up. That all reflects about your brand. A brand is also having a personal brand. It's not just saying that I have a personal brand, but it's really being clear on knowing what you have to offer, right? When people say they have a strong personal brand, it's because that they truly understand their strengths, their unique value proposition, what makes them unique from other people. Okay? And that's what makes it having a strong personal brand. Okay, another question related to personal branding is, what are some tips for marketing your transferable skills, for instance, when trying to find a job in a different field than your experience? That's a good question. So if you're looking to transfer to a different field, one of the things what you want to do is first understand the language that's used in that targeted field. Right. So for example, this person I was talking about who used to work in government, the resume that he had didn't necessarily translate to a technology industry. So in order to make that what I call connecting the dots, you want to first understand what are the keywords that employers or recruiters use to help them understand that you have those transferable skills. So you can do a search on LinkedIn and looking for those targeted roles that you're interested in and identify those keywords that this other new industry uses and see if you can, reapply, reframe, reposition it to your own resume so that you are showcasing that you are targeting the roles that you're interested in there. Okay, so that's one. I think the other, when you think about it, in general, in terms of transferable skills, usually they're pretty common, right? When you think about the transferable skills, it could be communication skills, negotiation skills, leadership skills, problem-solving skills, relationship management skills. These are pretty common transferable skills. So I'll give you an example. This is a great example. Like for me, as work as a recruiter, and so as a recruiter, I'm always recruiting people, but at the same time, I'm always presenting a great opportunity to someone. So I'm selling as well. So in a way like that, it's like a sales job, right? I'm selling an opportunity to candidates. And so when I applied for actually a sales job when I was at LinkedIn, one of the things that the hiring manager may not see is, well, how can a recruiter be a salesperson? And when I had to understand what that job entails as sales, is that they wanted people who are always exceeding quota, getting new clients, relationship management. I had to reframe and think about the experience I had of how it's actually like sales. So I reframed my wording. Instead of saying, when I was recruiting for MBA candidates, instead of starting saying that I recruited for 100 people, I would say that I generated $10 million for the school. And that sounds more like sales language than recruiting language. Okay. Oh, okay. So moving on. Question is here is, can I negotiate a raise for my next promotion if the company doesn't tend to negotiate? It's a good question. I think, you know what, it really depends, right? I mean, if they don't tend to negotiate, then it's probably hard. But I would say that if you are a high performer and you are giving great value, that's something you want to have a conversation with your hiring manager, your boss, that you want to raise, especially if you are underpaid. And what you want to do is do some market research to understand what is the market range or the market value of what employers typically pay. And so you want to go back and showcase of what you're looking for. For more information on salary negotiation, I did a webinar on salary negotiation. So if you look back on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/mymarkability, you can get more detailed advice I specifically talked about on salary negotiation. But absolutely, I think that, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask for what you believe you deserve, especially if you are a great performer. Okay, so we talked about personal branding here. The next we're going to move on is networking. So networking, I know that from my experience, I hear a lot of times from people telling me that they're not comfortable with networking. And it's because they're not comfortable about feeling they need to promote themselves or sell themselves. And one of the things I want you to think about networking is how you can be of service when you're networking. So instead of thinking that you always have to promote yourself, think of how you can also add value. So think of this mindset of, yes, you may need to highlight your unique value and your skill set, but really the perspective is thinking of that, how you can actually add value, how you can actually make an impact for a positive impact for an organization. So in that case, the conversation becomes a lot easier because you are being of service versus trying to just sell yourself. Okay, so question here on networking. Tips on requesting informational interviews if you don't know the person. That's a really good question. So, I mean, this is a very broad topic, but I would say, first of all, in general, the rule of thumb is that you want to do your research and you want to be thoughtful on who you reach out to. So have a criteria on the type of people you want to reach out to and understand what's the purpose of reaching out to them, right? You want to value people's time. So you want to give a clear call to action of why you want to connect with them, what you want to learn. Be specific, but also being concise as well. Because if you write a long message, the likelihood of someone saying yes is really low. So you want to be specific and also give them that you only want like 20 minutes of their time versus like a whole hour. It's a lot easier for someone to say yes. And the other thing I think what's important is that I think when you ask for information in interviews, if you're just starting out, what you probably want to do first is start finding someone who are what I consider your peer level to learn more about the role, the key success factors to be successful in the role. So to do your research that way first before you go start talking to like the recruiter or the hiring manager, and before you talk to like someone who is very senior in an organization. So start with finding people who are at your peer level first, and then gradually talk to people who have more influence to help you find that opportunity that you're interested in. Okay. Okay, so what's another question here? Another question is, how do you respond to mass emails about being qualified for a potential job when you want to learn more about the role but don't want to move from your current one yet? What is the best way to get a response? I'm not sure if I understand the question. How do you respond to a mass emails about being qualified for a potential job? So I'm guessing if you're a job seeker and you've done a mass email, first of all, I don't know if that is effective if you're sending a mass email out, because you do want to tailor it to the person. But I think in terms of if you want to learn more about the role and you're not leaving yet, I mean, honestly, just to be honest, like let them know where are you now, what you're looking for, and why. And this is why you want to learn more. And so being honest of why you want this person's time and why you want to learn, and just being really specific of that. And so instead of saying, like, I just want to chat with you, you want to be like, I want to chat with you to learn more about XYZ. In terms of the best way of getting a response, to be honest, I think keeping it brief and concise, that's the way to go. When you write it too long, like a long cover letter, it's really hard for someone to get you a response. And the other thing just to keep in mind, is that when you reach out to people, like, you're not going to get 100% response rate. The rule of thumb probably is you probably only get 20 or 30%. So if you reach out to 100 people, you may only get 20 responses. And this is why I always give people a challenge that when you're looking for a job, identify a list of 100 people that you want to connect with, right? That you want to outreach to. So you may not get, you won't get 100 people responding back to you. You probably only get 20 or 30 people responding back to you. And that's okay. That's a good start to start talking to like this 20 people. And once you talk to these 20 people, if they are clear on who you are and what you want, and you build a good connection, you could end the conversation asking them, is there anyone else in your network that I should be connecting to? Right? If they know what you want, typically they would have someone they can think of that they can introduce you to. Now, keep in mind, people will only make introductions if they trust you, if they like you, if they feel comfortable in endorsing you. So the first step of these meetings is you want to build the trust. You want to build likability. You want to build rapport. You can't just go in and say like, oh, can you introduce me to more people? It just won't work that way. Many years ago, I introduced a client to someone else in my network to learn more about that specific organization that he was interested in. And before actually even getting on a call to get to know this person and find out more of the organization, this client actually asked the person I introduced if he could make an introduction to someone else in his network based on what he found on LinkedIn. And this connection of mine write me back an email and say like, oh, like, should I trust this person? Is this person, great at what they do? And so I think it's just showcase that, they felt uncomfortable because they don't even know this person. It's really hard for them to say yes to doing that favor for you. Okay, moving on is, let's see here. Okay, so a follow-up question on networking is, how do you reach out to people on LinkedIn that you don't know to learn more about their company or department, with the final goal finding out if there are any openings in their company and having an in? So, I mean, obviously that's the ultimate goal, right? That you want to be able to get an in. And so remember the example I shared earlier of how the client who made change the industry from government to tech, he had to meet with a dozen people to finally get the job offer. And I think in order to get that in is you have to, one, be really consistent with your messaging of why you want something and what you have to offer. So I think that needs to be consistent. But I think in terms of even getting someone to consider you for opportunities, I think the most important part is showcasing that you've done your research and preparation. If you've done your research and preparation, people will know, they'll be impressed. They will know that you are determined, you are truly committed in making this move. They are more willing to make that investment of time to help you because you also invested the time in doing your homework and research. Okay. Okay, so moving on. See, any other questions from the audience here? If you're here live, feel free to submit your questions. Okay. All right, let me see. We're moving on into now LinkedIn, because that ties into networking as well. So one question here. I recently got a LinkedIn account. What are some of the things I should be doing to optimize my account? Great stuff. So I'm glad that this person opened a LinkedIn account. So first of all, what I want to say is LinkedIn should be one of your most effective tools in finding a job. As a recruiter, I use LinkedIn all the time to find the best candidates for an employer. So if you're not on LinkedIn, it's very hard for a recruiter to find you. So what you want to do, first of all, if you're just getting started on LinkedIn, a few things. Number one is you want to ensure that your profile is complete. So what this means is you want to have a great LinkedIn profile picture. Okay, the picture is key because when we search, we see the picture, your name, and the tagline. So the picture is key. Number two is the tagline. Most of the times, people will just have the default of their title. So if you don't put anything in, it would just be a default job title. Instead, what I recommend is think of this as like your branding statement or the soundbite, the value proposition. Think from the perspective of what are the relevant keywords that a recruiter would use to search. So come up with 3. So you can do some search. What are the 3 keywords that is relevant to your area of expertise? And then the 4th statement is you come up with what I call your value proposition. So you use like an adjective, and then you add in like what's the value proposition of what you can do for the employer. So that will help generate curiosity for someone to click on your profile to view further. So once they click further, what you want to do is you want to have a great bio summary. Most of the time I see a lot of people don't make use of what I consider this as a great premium real estate space. You have like 2,000 characters that you can fill in the blanks of really for people to get a sense of who you are, right? So this is beyond just like a resume. You want to give a sense of your personality just through the way you write, your tone of voice. And in there, you can also add some keywords, again, back to your area of interest and to help you become more searchable. And then obviously, you want to fill in the rest of the information, which is your experience and job titles. Your job titles is another key area that you can optimize to become more searchable as well. And then I would say the other thing is that if you've been working for quite some time or you've volunteered, reach out to 3 to 5 people to ask for a recommendation. Okay, so if you have a recommendation, it does help with showcasing and giving people a sense of who you are. I mean, it's not a deal breaker if you don't have a testimonial. It's totally okay, but it's just a nice way to enhance your profile even further. Okay, follow-up question, another question here. What is the best way to optimize auto searches? So I'm guessing this is where auto searches meaning getting alerts. I'm guessing that's the question. That's what it's about. I mean, you could create job alerts, right? On LinkedIn, you can create job alerts where they'll send you openings. So you can you could set that whether it's weekly or I think monthly or daily. You can do that on different job boards. You can receive alerts as well. So get them to send into all your same account. That would work. You can also do a Google alert where if you want to get news about companies that may have vacancies or openings, you can set up job alerts for that as well. Okay. So another question that ties in is how to build an effective LinkedIn profile. So I answered a bit of that in terms of optimization, but I think one of the things about building an effective profile is that instead of just copy and pasting your resume, we have that information in your experience section. Get creative with the tagline and the bio summary, because that is a way where you can really shine and differentiate from everyone else who's not necessarily taking time to fill out their profile. I would avoid, if you're a job seeker, to put in the tagline that you were seeking for opportunities, because that comes across more desperate. Instead, you want to flip it and think of what is the value that you have to offer. That will generate greater curiosity and interest. Okay. I think that's all the questions I think that I have for LinkedIn. I'm going to move into, let's see here, resumes. Okay, it's the next section here. So as a recruiter, I've seen over 10,000 resumes, and I would say that over 90% of the resumes typically look the same. And one of the common mistakes that I see what people make in the resume is that they typically make it very responsibilities focused on what they've done versus how they've added value. So a resume that's more responsibility focused, I consider it's more like a history document of your job description. But when you make it a more marketing document, it really promotes and sells your accomplishments, your unique skill sets. It just sounds more impressive than a resume that's responsibility focused, that it's more mediocre or average. And so a question here is, who should I ask to assist with my resume? A friend, a coworker, or hire a professional? Well, I mean, it depends, but really, truthfully, you can really ask all of these people. So I think that if you have a resume that's not really getting results, I mean, I would probably consider hiring a professional who has experience writing resumes, or who has experience reviewing lots of resumes to get their feedback, or you can hire them to help you write it as well. Because sometimes resume writers who are certified, they can write in a way that makes it very polished and impressive as well. And then from there, you can ask for feedback from your friend or colleague to see whether it's giving the right impression. But typically, I would say for resumes, do get feedback, but obviously the same thing is with resumes. When you get feedback, it really depends on the person's experience as well, right? So if someone doesn't have a lot of experience hiring or reviewing resumes, the advice you may get may not be as relevant, but if they have a writing background, they probably can help you with fixing like the grammar, the style, but they may not even necessarily understand the type of roles you're applying for. So it's hard for them to help you give advice on how to tailor that resume. Okay, so the next question. How to make my resume stand out from my competition? Good question. So I said earlier that 90% of the resumes look the same. And so, you know, when you think about it, if you really put the time to be thoughtful and creative and unique in creating your resume, you definitely stand out. So I think a few things you can think about is, think of from the format and design perspective. What are some things you can do to make it look more modern, refreshing? And it could be something, for example, using a bit of color in the resume with your headlines, or you know, adding like some good, like a border, or whatever that is, just to make it look more polished, that is more thoughtful. So that's more from a format and design perspective. Okay, so that's like part of personal branding as well. From a content perspective, you want to write what I call the impact statements. You want to make it sound, you want to quantify or qualify. So whenever you can, use numbers to back up what you've done, right? Because that is more factual, but also gives this good sense of the scope of the work that you've done, how big it is, how important it is. It's better. So most of the time I see a lot of resumes are very qualitative based. If you can make it a bit more quantitative based, it gives more that standout factor. The other thing is you want to use, start with what I call like the action verbs. So instead of saying responsible for, helped, assisted, you want to use words that are more powerful, such as you led, developed, created, budgeted, analyzed, assessed, evaluated. Use words that are the powerful, proactive language that gives the impression that you're a high performer and someone with high potential. So let's just think about this. As an employer or the recruiter, when we look at resumes, they're looking for people who have that consistent great performance and see that they will continue to succeed. So when you think about that, they're looking for evidence. They're looking for evidence of not just that you've done this, but have you done it well? Have you been also recognized as a high performer? Have you received awards? That's what they're looking for. So you want to highlight that. So for example, if you received a promotion, you want to indicate that, you know, that you were promoted faster than your peers, or that you received like 3 awards in over the past 3 years. It gives a sense that you are a high performer. Okay, what's the next question here? In my experience, in your experience, my experience, what are some strategy or tips that candidates have done to stand out in a cover letter and resume when applying for jobs? I've seen all sorts, but I think that Let's talk about the resumes first. I've seen some that are creative. For example, people using infographics to stand out, or using videos. Now, I think this also depends on industry. When you're trying to use more creative resume, I know that if you're applying for more creative roles, they like that, or you're applying for roles, let's say in the technology field, that like that. But if you're applying for more traditional fields, it may be something like maybe too creative. But I would say even having, I've seen people, for example, having, like I'll talk about my experience at Google. Like when one person I found online, he was super excited and passionate about applying for the role. So instead of sending me just his standard black and white resume, he created a template with the Google search engine of his resume. So searching for his name and then how to take the experience. And that resume like went around the entire office and into the US as well, because it was just so creative and unique and tailored to that specific organization. I mean, I've seen some really good resumes out of not just the infographic. Sometimes it's hard to read, but that's something that is more editorial, so kind of like a magazine type that basically has a design element and it's branded, that makes it look more polished. In terms of cover letter that stands out, to be honest with you, I would say as a recruiter, I'll skim through the cover letters, but it's not something that necessarily is a must-have to really stand out. I think that in order to be effective with a cover letter, avoid writing a very long essay. Instead, think about 3 of your unique selling points that tie into the role of what you have to offer. So keep it very concise and brief to make yourself stand out. And make it more, and you also want to make it that it's also in your tone of voice as well, for people to get a sense of who you are. Okay, so any other questions that people have related to resumes before I move on? Okay, so the next set of questions is on interviews. Okay, interviews. What are some of the key tips for success to ace an interview? Good question. So when you think about this for an interview, first of all, you need to be well prepared. I think that's the most important. The foundation is you need to be prepared for an interview. You can't just wing it. So I think that's the foundation to success, is being prepared. Being prepared with your own responses, being prepared where you've done your research about the organization, about the role, about the industry, about the interviewers that you're interviewing with. You want to do all your research to really understand of what is it that they're looking for, where the company is heading, because that will give you more meaningful conversations to have in an interview. Now, when you arrive to an interview, or when you're talking to a recruiter over the phone for an interview, I think the rule of thumb is you want to make your first impression a lasting impression. And I think the way you start an interview is critical, because studies have shown that pretty much within the first few minutes, a hiring manager could pretty much decide whether they want to move forward with a candidate or not. So just the way you show up in terms of your enthusiasm, your excitement for the role, and your passion for the role, people need to feel that you are genuinely interested in the opportunity and in talking to this person. So that is key. So I think that you want to feel good about going into interview to make that first great impression. And you want to be able to find a common ground, be able to have that common interest with the interviewer, where you're building rapport and have that chemistry, which has that likability factor as well. The other thing I think what's really important, I mean, most of the times I know people going to interview, they're nervous, right? Anxious, stress. And one of the things to help deal with that, I think, is just pausing and slowing down and taking time to breathe. Be thoughtful with your responses. Instead of answering the question right away, put your thoughts together first. What is it that you're trying to say, and what's the message that you want to give? So that way it showcases that you are being thoughtful and structured with your responses. The other thing I always remind people about interviews is that you want to speak in a way that is easy for the interviewer to take notes. Because when you make it easy for them to take notes, when they review or debrief about your candidacy, they can remember the things that you've said. So it makes like a more greater impression on them. And in order to do that, you want to be structured and have a framework to deliver your responses as well. The other thing I think to ace an interview, one of the things I would say is having really good examples and stories. So instead of just saying that, oh, I'm a great team player or I'm great with time management, give examples of how you demonstrated those skill sets so that there is evidence of support there. And really think it through of what did you do, and then showcase that you reflect on what you might do differently, right? Because if you can showcase that what you've learned from that experience and what you might do differently, it's a good indicator for an interviewer to identify, okay, well, how you might behave in a similar scenario like this in your future job. I think the other thing is when I think about interviews, I do a lot of interview coaching, and it's really important that, not only when the interviewer, asks you questions, but it's taking time to be thoughtful of asking the interviewer questions as well. And this could vary depending on the people you talk to. So, some general rule I think is that you can ask people about the job itself, like what is it that they like about the job? What is it they like about working in the organization? What is it that if it's the hiring manager, where do they see the department is going, or what are the key success factors of the role? So you want to showcase that you are engaged, but also give an idea of like what's important to you as well. And that makes it more conversational by asking questions. I would say, on the flip side, when you think about it, what are the reasons why people get rejected to interview? I have like my 4 C's, and I kind of touched base on those. Like, one is lack of confidence, lack of connection, lack of clear, compelling examples, and what's the 4th one? Clear examples and lack of compelling examples and lack of clear communication. So usually with the clear communication piece is that if people don't necessarily understand what you're trying to say or aren't clear on your past experience, it's really hard for them to identify how you will perform in a future role. So this is why it's important to practice. Find someone to practice your interview responses. You can try recording yourself in front of a video as well to see how you are delivering your message. Keeping in mind, only 7% of your message impact is based on your words. The 93% is based on your nonverbal communication, and this includes your body language, your tone of voice. That has a great impact on the impression that people leave on you. Okay, so that's about it for questions. I hope that this was valuable to you and that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with me. I want to spend the last 15 minutes or so to share with you. If you are interested in working with me, please do get in touch. Send me an email. You can go to my website at mymarketability.com, fill out a form, or click on the contact page and you can contact me and we'll set up a consultation call. If you're wondering different ways to work with me, I want to quickly just to take this opportunity to share with you. And I mentioned earlier that I have a bonus as well as part of the 5-year anniversary. A few ways. So number one is you can hire me on an hourly basis as a coach or work with my associate coach. So for example, if you need a mock interview or if you need someone to give you some advice on your career direction, we can do that in an hour. Number two, another way to work with me is you can hire us for a period of time. So we have a coaching package called the Ultimate Coaching Package. So this includes our online program, which is 12 hours of training content. And this covers the 6 courses of the areas that we talked about earlier today, which includes self-discovery, personal branding, resumes, LinkedIn, interviews, and networking. So the 12 hours of training content is recorded in video format and audio format that you can download, along with presentation slides and worksheets. So this has a step-by-step guide on everything you need to help you prepare for a successful job search. And so that's a great complementary to the one-on-one coaching where we can focus on you, focus on your messages, on your resume, on your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, instead of the methodology, because you already have access to the training materials in a membership site. So that's another way of working with me. If you don't need the one-on-one coaching, you can get just the online program with that 12 hours of content to a private membership site, which is our elite package. So as part of what I'm doing right now for the anniversary promo that I'm doing is that if you buy right now any of the elite package or the ultimate package, you'll get an extra bonus 1 hour of coaching. So the elite package is just the training, but if you get that now, you'll get an extra bonus hour of training. And what I want to do is I want to take a moment, I'll share with you my screen of what the membership site looks like to give you an idea of the content that's in there. So just give me a moment that I'll share this with you. So this is the membership site inside. So you can see here there are 6 courses on Discover Your Essence, which is really getting clear on who you are, and then moving to the personal branding of how to define your brand and promote your brand. And then there's the resume course, which I talk about resumes from a recruiter's perspective of what they're looking for, how to write a great resume, and how to differentiate your resume. So this includes a design and formatting piece there. Then there's the interviews course, which is my most comprehensive course and most popular one. It's 4 hours long that covers everything from understanding the interview process, preparing for your interview. So here I have tons of questions on what you need to do your research about the organization, the industry, the role, and interviewers. Then I'll walk you through various frameworks on how to deliver impressive interviews, how to structure your what I call your glowing introduction, which is your elevator pitch, how to conquer interview anxiety. Because most of the time people are nervous about that. So how to manage that and be confident going into your interview. And a last module on how to tackle the salary negotiation, which is a really great one if you want to learn how to negotiate effectively. And as a recruiter, I've done tons of negotiations because I made hundreds of offers on behalf of an employer. Next course is networking. Networking is another popular topic that I get asked a lot, and really sharing with you here the power of networking, how to develop a networking strategy to generate opportunities, how to make an impressive introduction, whether it's in person or on LinkedIn, how to connect effectively, and how to nurture your network. Oftentimes people ask me, well, I met this person, but how do I actually continue the relationship with them? And then the last but not least is the LinkedIn course. I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn should be one of your most powerful or effective tool for your job search. So I walk you through here on the power of LinkedIn, how to create a marketable LinkedIn profile, how to use LinkedIn settings, and how to leverage LinkedIn for your job search. So this is all the 6 courses, and you can see here when you click on it to give you an idea of what it looks like inside. There are modules that are in video format that you can click play, and you can download everything, the audio, video, the slides. You can download them all at once as well. And there are worksheets in the course as well. So if you look at here for the interviews course, I have 5 modules, and there are worksheets that you can get and also sample templates that will help you with completing the exercises. And so this, you get access to this with the login information. And there are tons, and so this will help you really give you a step-by-step guide in preparing for your job search and to give you confidence as well. Okay, so let me get back to here. Okay, so thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful that you were here to listen and to also ask your questions as well. I hope that I was here to be of service. If you want to learn more, if you're new to my work, I would love to have you a part of my mailing list. You can get updates from me every couple weeks. I also have my YouTube channel where I have tons of free resources as well. And I look forward to staying in touch with all of you. And thank you so much. And oh, by the way, the promotion for the bonus 1 hour ends on Monday, February the 8th. So if you're interested and you're not sure, just send me an email and we'll set up a quick consultation call for me to answer your question, and I'll let you know whether it's a good fit for you to get that program at this time. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers to your magnificence. Bye.